Bienvenidos al capítulo 3, El tiempo libre, parte 2. Okay, so let's pick up where we left off on part one of the chapter 3 lecture video. So we're continuing looking at grammar points that we see in this chapter. So part 3, talking about quantity, numbers 100 to 2 million. All right, so numbers, we're going to look first. Let's do a little recap on numbers 31 to 100. Okay, so again, we remember that numbers 31 to 99 follow the same basic pattern as 21 to 99, for example. All right, so with 31, 31, 32, 32, 33, 34, 35, etc. We see that we have 30 and 1, 30 and 2. Same with 40. 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, etc. And of course with 50, we see that that's the same pattern. So we have 50, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, or we can use ciento. So we'll see that in just a second. Okay, so once we're at 100, we begin using cien. Cien is used before nouns and in counting. The word un, una, and uno are never used before cien in Spanish. Use cientos to say hundreds. So for example, right here, hay 100 libros y 100 sillas. There are 100 books and 100 chairs. Right here we have a different example. ¿Cuántos libros hay? Cientos. So how many books are there? Hundreds. All right, so we see that right here. Use cientos to say hundreds. So looking at numbers 101, 101, and higher, we see this on page 105 of our textbook for mosaicos. So as shown in the chart, Spanish uses a period to indicate thousands and millions, rather than a comma as used in English. So don't let yourself be confused by this. We're not talking about decimals when we're looking at this right side. That's just the substitute that we use in Spanish and in many other languages instead of a comma. Okay, so let's look here. We would say 100, we would say cien. However, when we start moving away from just 100, we see ciento, 101, 102, 103, 104, okay? Once we get to 200, we continue that pattern and we see 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900. Finally, once we break that barrier, we get to 1,000. And to say 1,000, we say 1000, right? 1100, 2000, 5000, 100,000, 200,000, 550,000. And we break that barrier to get to 1,000,000. 1,000,000, 8 millones, etc. So pay close attention to 1,000 is 1000, 1,000,000, 1,000,000. Notice that you should never use ciento. Notice that you should use ciento, not cien, to count numbers over 100. Okay? So this is something I just said a second ago, but just as a reminder. 110, 118, 150. Okay? All right. So the next parts, so this will be part 4 of our grammar and mosaicos in chapter 3. We're looking at saber and conocer. Very, very simple. Okay, and I'll try to explain it as well as possible. So we see here, Spanish has 2 verbs that mean to know. Saber and conocer. They cannot be used interchangeably. And we'll look at the conjugations first here. But notice the yo irregular form. So, as we saw with our go verbs in part 1, we also have an irregular form just in the yo form of this verb. The rest of the verb is pretty normal, right? So this is an ER verb, so it all ends in es, hemos, en. Conocer, es, hemos, en. However, we see that we have an irregular with saber, sé, and conocer, conozco, yo sé. But what is the difference? All right? Why do we have two? So, saber means to know a fact or pieces of information, or to know how to do something. No sé tu número de teléfono. I don't know your telephone number. Mi hermana sabe hablar francés. So my sister knows how to speak French. So this is information or how to do something. However, conocer means to know or to be familiar with, acquainted with, a person, place, or thing. ¿Conoces la ciudad de Nueva York? Do you know New York City? Have you ever been to New York City? No conozco a tu amigo Esteban. I don't know your friend. So this means, are you familiar or acquainted with a place? Or are you familiar or acquainted with a person? This guy Esteban. Okay, guys, if there's any other questions, just a reminder, you can see this section on page 108, 108, okay? I'm always here to answer any questions you might have, but also the textbook will give you a more in-depth explanation. Okay, this is la final de la segunda parte. The last part of this chapter, por versus para, will be explained in a separate video. Please check it out, okay? I think it will help. I'm trying to go a little bit more in depth with por y para. I can be a bit confusing at times, so I'll try my best to explain it as clearly and concisely as possible. Again, as always, any questions, send me an email. Contact me on Skype. My email address is lflint@gc.edu. My Skype profile name is Profe Levi, okay? So contact me, shoot me an email, and we can be learning together and be on the same path and make sure that we understand everything. Okay, muchas gracias, nos vemos pronto, que les vaya bien. Chao.